how much love for the 12 cylinders.
It's beautiful that we can continue to make them. And then we've given it not a nostalgic tone, but an extremely modern one with the auto chassis.
That's for sure. And in fact, as much as one might think that the chassis is that of the 812, in reality it is not exactly so. In fact, it is really, except for the shorter wheelbase, but so tight with the 8 on 12 you wouldn't turn.
Exactly right. Four-wheel steering makes a bit of a difference because the stability here on the fast 170 corners and also under braking.
You're crazy. Yeah, come on, do it drifting. Great. And then look how far it goes.
9,250. Second blue LED light. Is a sound. Is a music.
270, 280. And here it is, the new Ferrari 12Cilindri. We finally get to put our big hands on it. I can already tell you that I drove it in the rain on a course that was also quite difficult. But these extreme conditions allowed me to understand how the generational leap from the 812 to the 12Cilindri allowed a soul that remains that of the 812 competition as far as the engine is concerned, and as far as some features that are part of the mechanics of this car, how they have allowed it to be much easier to drive than in the past, by going to reward what is an engineering effort to put together an aspirated 12-cylinder car in the 2024 with all the features that are needed to be a real Ferrari, but at the same time with all the features that are needed to enjoy every day a car that must not only be beautiful, must not only be fast, but must also be safe and pleasant to drive. All these features are found thanks to the implementation that clearly also had for anagraphical issues. Engineering has gone much further than the 812. This is reflected precisely in a transfer of what are the values of the 812 competition. So 830 horsepower at 9,250 revolutions, it turns very high. This engine actually goes up to 9,500 revolutions as a rev limiter with 678 newtons per meter of maximum torque at 7,250 revolutions, a V12. Engine V65 degrees, that is son of the tradition of the House of Maranello, is brought, however, in an industrial dimension, a little bit more refined from a constructive point of view than precisely that of the 812 competition, that in fact was the engine of the 812, however, precisely with elements for competition that allowed that engine to push itself to these values of power and clearly of performance here. Instead, those modifications have been industrialized, have been made repeatable more easily for the men who go to build this car on the assembly line. And clearly the car constitutes the starting point for a future competition, who knows what they will call it, that will come later, that will have a little bit more than 830 horsepower. Probably it will have 850. However, it's early to talk about that iron today. We celebrate the arrival of this new 12-Cilindri that takes from the past with full hands, as far as this visor in the front is very reminiscent of that of the 365 Daytona. And this allows you to go to put your hands a little in the past with lines that are extremely modern as far as the part of aesthetics precisely are stylistic details that are really resounding and that are part of a new design of the House of Maranello that the technicians of the Rossa wanted to bring precisely also within this project, that exactly like the Puro Sangue to Minas also brings with it the bonnet, that is a stylistic element, really very cool, and that allows you to go to give an extraordinary harmony to the design of the car. But at the same time, also once opened, now I open it and enjoy with me once opened, reminds a bit, what is a racing car? Look at this. With the wheels in view, with the opening of the carbon fiber, look at that beautiful stuff that leaves in view the 21 inches. So you go up an inch compared to the 812 with double tires, Michelin Pilot Sport, S5 or otherwise, of the Goodyear that we're going to test later on the track, and that arrive as original equipment on this new Ferrari that here is in yellow and there is in red. car, in my opinion, beautiful precisely because of the architectural features that go to position the engine behind the axis of the wheels. Look where it is positioned. This 12-cylinder almost enters the cabin. And to allow this installation, the gearbox, which is a Magna dual clutch, developed in collaboration between the German company and the Ferrari engineers, was installed in the rear position, then in transaxle dislocation with a novelty, because there are no longer the 7 gears of the previous 8 or 12, but there are 8 gears, of which the first 3 much shorter. The first 3, 4 are much shorter than the previous ones. This allows to have an impact as far as the emotional part in the acceleration phases, but at the same time also in the perception that this car gives in the moment you go to drive it on the road. Seems much brighter, even if then the performance is slightly better than in the past. But precisely having the shorter gears, especially the first 3 bar 4 gears, gives that idea of extra momentum that allows the car anyway to reach extraordinary top speed values, because we are in the range of 340 kilometers per hour, but at the same time to accelerate from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds and 95, 0 to 200 in 8 seconds, and 2, taking into account that it breaks from 100 to 0 in 31 meters, and 4, so photonic performance worthy of the 812 competition precisely, but with a definitely more modern design. And by modern, I mean really modern. It picks up from the past exactly as if it were a design object. It is almost no longer an automotive object. It becomes a design object that is dropped into the present, becoming a bit of an object actually of the future. And the more this car goes on, the more it will surely please even the collectors, who immediately turned up their noses a bit because they are different shapes than we were used to living in the house of Ferrari. But at the same time, I'm sure they will like them very much, precisely because they are daughters of a tradition that certainly did not start today, and that is always part of the universe of the 12 cylinders. It is exciting, in my opinion, much more in the GTS version than in the Spider version that will come a little bit later. It is also very beautiful, the coupe, because of this play of bodywork. You see it, that goes to interrupt ideally what is the linearity of construction of the black parts, in which this element and clearly this element are in glass, and then there is the part instead metallic in aluminum that goes to complete what is the turn of the body in a set of forms that finds great tension in these 2 elements that you see that run on the side, going to separate what is the upper and the lower part of the car. More clearly in the longitudinal arrangement, and clearly also in length development. You notice the very present, very mighty rear part in terms of the displacement also of the wheel arches, with the passenger compartment that is sitting on the rear wheels with a really remarkable wheel size, because we are at 315, 35, 21 with wheels that are designed to go on precisely Goodyear or Michelin in this case. Brembo 4-piston caliper with the carboceramic disc. Actually here we have a very strong evolution as far as brakes that allow you to have a material that is really very close to that, used also to mean Formula One cars. Clearly there is evolution also in the carboceramic, and this has allowed to Ferrari to go and manage much better what are the temperatures, much better what are the braking, which is now assisted by a brake system that uses a brake master cylinder, let's put it that way, by wire. So the moment you brake, you are actually telling a potentiometer how much to brake than the brake system itself. Look how wonderful this piece is, beautiful, with the view also on what is the wishbone suspension layout behind there, is multi-link with the Magna Ride electronically controlled shocks that allow the car to be super effective in all the positions of the Manettino. Keep in mind that back here we also have the 4 steering wheels that can work independently, only right wheel, only left wheel. So if we turn the steering wheel to the right, it is not necessarily the case that the rear wheels both turn in phase or in counter phase. It is also possible that the wheel inside the curve, to mean us, opens differentially than the outer one, going to create that agility that is needed in changes of direction to allow a car of almost 1,600 pounds with 2 meters and 70 of wheelbase to be super agile. At least this is what is stated by the Ferrari engineers, who have worked so much on this aspect, already starting precisely with the 812 competition. I closed the bonnet, although I'll show it to you also from this angle. It's beautiful. It's a piece that clearly we had already known on the Puro Sangue, but we find again here, wait for me to close, on this stylistic evolution of the Daytona, that is something really extraordinary. There are among the various elements also the 6-piston brake calipers, the 398mm carboceramic discs with a new construction technology that almost allows you to get to the level of Formula One in terms of the construction of the disc itself. The rims are 21 inches, so 1 inch more than the 8 and 12. And this then will make a difference from the point of view of style. We don't know yet clearly as far as the driving part is concerned, but I can imagine that then the Ferrari engineers have worked underneath to allow all these elements to work very closely together and express only one data, which is that of performance as a function also of an improved driving comfort. At least this is what they try to get there in Maranello a little bit from all their cars, but especially from this 12-Cilindri, which precisely in design is a bit more leisure than the sportiness expressed previously. And so I can imagine that also everything that goes behind the search for comfort can then also be used as a function of these new technical elements that have arrived, also inherited from the 812 competition, clearly readjusted to the style and needs of this car. Very beautiful, the interior with the yellow stitching, then in the color of the body, leather, Alcantara, crazy, all covered also here below. In the lower part, super crisp carbon fibers and plastic elements using recycled plastics. This to go to give a appearance so a little bit less impactful from the point of view of pollution, despite the fact that there are 12 cylinders in front there, which however has been made super efficient. Very nice seats, clearly of racing derivation as far as the aesthetic part is concerned, but in this case covered in leather with the mix of Alcantara that allow then to really have a very nice seat. Also chromatically very in tune with what is the body, and an interior, you see it split. You see how the upper part of this dashboard has been designed with two elements, so two separate cockpits for the passenger and for the driver, with a central one instead that goes to make its internal technology dialogue with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So the navigator, you have it of Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, plus all the elements, for example, of air conditioning, of phone, etc., that instead are integrated inside the car. As always, the multifunction steering wheel with a lot of elements that are clearly about driving settings with wet, sport, race, CT and SC off, with all the other elements like the arrows or otherwise the controls to turn functions on or off that are built into the steering wheel itself. The auto shift is driven automatically or through these levers behind the steering wheel, but everything is mounted very close precisely to the steering wheel itself to ensure everything you need directly from where you hold your hands just to drive the car and not go looking for other buttons around the car. The only thing that you can do is go and select the driving mode, so manual or automatic. Select launch control if you want to thunder start or reverse gear at the time when you clearly have to maneuver, plus some things that deal with activating or deactivating start and stop, plus headlights, plus mirror adjustment. We also have a nearly 16-inch all-digital display up here in the front with RPM counter that is reproduced, let's say, Ferrari style, and other information that clearly comes from the multimedia system. I'll point out to you how back here there is ample room for a delicate suitcase, a soft suitcase, or our backpack, while back here we have a beautiful trunk. Look at that. Very capacious, clearly in relation to what the car is, precisely in function of the fact that you can use this air to the 812, exactly as the 812, as the F12, also for daily commuting. It is not a daily car, let's say, that everyone will use on a daily basis, but know that those who have such a car anyway, 6, 7, 10,000 kilometers a year often do, and this precisely travels hand in hand with the need to have some space for luggage. And here we are behind the wheel of our Ferrari 12Cilindri. Unfortunately, the day is not exactly what was expected on the day of the testing of this car, but it actually provides us with the opportunity to understand how this Ferrari, how this 12Cilindri is able to be drivable even when the situations are really complicated, because it's not only raining here, but we're also in the middle of the undergrowth with all that goes with it. Mamma mia, how much it pushes. How hard this engine pushes. Crazy when you expect it to run out, he's still got more. You expect it to run out 8,000, he's still got 1,005 to pull. There he pulls great, because the maximum power closes its, let's say, life at 9,250 revolutions. Then there are 250 revolutions from long. The torque finds its maximum 678 newtons per meter at 7,250 revolutions in a complete explosion, in an absolutely addictive sound that allows you to live, to feel this car exactly as you live, as you feel all the 12-cylinder Ferrari that have followed in the history of this incredible brand. Enzo Ferrari's favorite engine, I have no doubt that it is also the favorite engine of the test drivers, of the engineers, because it is an honor to work on the engine of this kind, and it is also an honor to take on the road a car that over time has managed to evolve, has also clearly managed to keep up with the modernity of the car that has obviously become Mamma mia. I want to live always between 6,000 and 9,000 RPM this engine. I want a life always plugged into that RPM there. I was saying, there's an evolution on the part of the car. There's a clear evolution because electronics has allowed us to make some very notable steps forward. Clearly also the design of materials, metallurgy, everything that goes behind the design of cars has gone forward light years. He has always remained himself in some years, even changed shape and became boxer to mean, even though it was a V of 100 and so many degrees. But actually then starting in the 90s, with the introduction of the 12-cylinder, always a V of 65 degrees in Formula One, this company took over that design, made it road, brought it in dozens of declinations, and today we find it precisely in this 12-Cilindri, which wants to be a little more leisure, especially from an aesthetic point of view, as we saw before in the static part, but actually below you find all the features, all the new features, all the technical and technological elements that the House of Maranello has put in place for the 812 competition that is the fastest, most photonic 12-cylinder car, clearly speaking of front mid-engine cars ever made by the House of Maranello. All those innovations that have been introduced on that incredible object that is the son of a dynasty of cars, such as, for example, the F12 TDF, precisely the 812 Competizione, etc., etc. We find it again precisely within this project that made industrial all the innovations that were part precisely of a project born to offer a competition proposal. Therefore, the object closest to a road car with front mid-engine that could be realized clearly with the 12-cylinder engine. And today we find it here. Look at it on this incredible vehicle that has a gearbox mounted back there with 8 gears that takes from the SF90X, all the technical evolutions. Mamma mia, what it spins in the straight. Techniques and technology that allow you to have a mom, how do you drive this incredible car? That allow you to have super fast shifts, especially in downshifting PAM. PAM, PAM, PAM. It's super fast in shifts, but what's amazing about this Ferrari is how Ferrari's engineers have succeeded in the feat of making a car spin fast, make a car spin tight, that in any case has very cumbersome mechanics, even in its own way is very heavy, because we have a weight of just under 1,600 kilograms. Excuse me for a moment, that's a very heavy car. burden of just under 1,600 kilograms that precisely is orchestrated to great effect by a chassis that has been revised from that of the 812 completely. Awesome is impressive. Awesome has been completely revolutionized compared to that of the 812, and today we can just appreciate the efforts that they have made in Maranello from a point of view of torsional rigidity. We cannot appreciate the aerodynamic ones because clearly today we are in a very unfavorable condition as regards the grip, but we can monitor the work done on the setup or on the electronically controlled shock absorbers that manage this incredible dynamic vehicle. And then we also managed to monitor all the work done, for example, on the four-wheel steer, that going to create agilities, going to create elements that allow the car to have decidedly faster corner entries. So in fact, there is a really manic study from a vehicle dynamics point of view that continues to make the 12-cylinder engine within this application very pleasant and true, but actually filters it just enough to make it easily drivable, let's put it this way, even in really very difficult situations like today. There are so many settings of the throttle that can be chosen based on your driving skills, but also on the conditions to mean the wet, which is what I'm using right now, really forgives any kind of mistake. Already in sport, you start to have a different perception of what the rear axle does, going to also enhance what are the characteristics of this engine, because it starts to be nice and full of torque already from 2,000 revolutions, then clearly growing, we have it from 5,000–6,000 revolutions up, but it is clear that the car then starts to have its highest expression once you get over 1,000 RPM, where it explodes in 2 strokes practically, where it explodes and you find yourself catapulted at cosmic speed to the next corner. Torn license in 1,000th of a second, but at the same time also so much enjoyment. You gladly hand over your license to the one in the police because you enjoyed it like hedgehogs just aboard an object that is of the motoring object that it knows how to do best from the beginning of its history, that it continues to carry on precisely because you are happy to have a piece like this in the range, clearly flanked by things a little more agile, even a little bit more performance. If you will like the twin-turbo V6 engine of the 296 two-time Le Mans winner aboard the 499P, is engine that clearly lighter, more compact at power values that are similar to that of this engine, clearly also helped by the hybrid module. But in fact, that car may in its own way be even more performance oriented than this 12-cylinder, without however clearly having the exact character of this engine that up front that dominates the scene in every respect, and dominates the scene also because the Ferrari guys have once again found a stage where they can make it express itself in the best of manners. Woo! How wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about prices. 395,000 euros. The list price of this car in Coupe Key, if you want the Spider, you travel to 430,000. So there is quite a difference in price. Of course, you have to add at least 100,000 euros, 100 grand for all the accessories that can be chosen to customize your 12-Cilindri. That really is a great, cool car. From this is all I have left to invite you to comment below. Ciao, and see you soon.